place to dive. The Schmidt family are not hobby divers. They are professionals who were hired to search the water for the Tierfern, a fleet of 11 ships that sank 300 years prior to their rediscovery in the Atlantic waters. The 1715 fleet was carrying hundreds of millions of dollars of treasure from Havana to Spain when it was struck with bad weather and smashed up on a reef. The disaster not only scattered millions of dollars worth of coins on the ocean bed, it also cost the lives of around 1,000 people, making colonial Spain's biggest maritime disaster. The divers literally struck gold when Eric Schmidt came across glittering gold coins 15 feet below the water and just 1,000 feet off the shore. Together, the family found 52 gold coins, 110 silver coins, 40 feet of gold chain, and other treasures totaling $1 million in value. The moment that Schmidt came across the treasure was caught on camera. Check out his excited reaction. Open discussion. While I was researching for this video, I found an image of a driver filming a huge snake. This is so scary because a snake that big could for sure kill you. It kind of looks like a giant green anaconda, the biggest snakes in the world, but I thought they were just freshwater animals. Do these guys also live in the sea? Could a diver really get that close to a snake that big without being hurt? Is this a real image? If so, where is the actual footage of the snake? Actually, scrap that. I don't think I want to see it. Let us know what you think is going on here in the comment section below and use hashtag open discussion in your comment. Number 14, iPhone 11. I'm old enough to remember the days that dropping a phone in even the smallest pool of water would mean game over. I'd spend days with my phone in a bag of rice hoping that some miracle would occur and it would work again. These days, phones are water resistant, with some of them proving totally waterproof. Recently, underwater YouTuber Dalmid helped a young woman called Emily find her iPhone 11 that she accidentally dropped in Bear Lake, Utah. She was out taking photos with her phone on a tripod when a gust of wind pushed it into the lake, and it sank before she was able to grab it. Dalmid, whose real name is Jake, took a dive down into the lake, which was teeming with carp at the surface. After a little searching, Jake found the lost phone. He seemed pretty excited to find it too. It was all covered in sand and still attached to the tripod that it sank with. Okay, so I made up the rice joke at the beginning of the point, but actually Emily did put her phone in rice to totally dry it out, and it worked. Well done, Jake. Number 13, Ancient Temple. Heracleion was an ancient city in Egypt visited by Helen of Troy, and according to Greek legend, Hercules. The city was once a thriving port, but it began declining around the 2nd century BCE after a series of earthquakes and floods. The soil under the city began to liquefy, and eventually, around 8 AD, it sank below the sea. Fast forward to 1933, when a Royal Air Force commander flew over Abu Qir Bay and spotted ruins under the water. The ruins were eventually located and explored by a French underwater archaeologist, Franck Godiot, in 1999, but a more extensive excavation took place in 2010. More recently, in 2019, the sunken city was under exploration by a group of divers who made yet another discovery. 148 feet down into the Mediterranean Sea, the city's main temple, Amun Garp, was discovered, as well as a smaller Greek temple. The holy structures date back thousands of years and have been lost underwater for nearly 2,000 years, with the cold temperatures and lower oxygen preserving many of the ancient structures. The dive came following a sonar scan of the area, and it's hoped that heavier use of sonar scanning will lead to even more incredible discoveries. As well as the temples, water archaeologists also found coins from the Byzantine era, which shed further light on the history of the sunken city. Number 12, Jesus. Okay, so not actually Jesus, but a statue of Jesus. The real thing would be shocking. Nonetheless, this statue of Jesus, known as Christ of the Abyss, is a bronze statue of Jesus that can be found by divers off the coast of Key Largo in Florida. The statue was dropped down under the water in August of 1965 and now sits 25 feet down below the surface. The bronze figure weighs 400 pounds, but the base it's attached to weighs around 20,000 pounds, so it isn't going anywhere. The statue is dedicated to Miami diver Michael Kervorian and has withstood storms and hurricanes. The haunting and mysterious statue is 9 feet tall and is now home to marine life. The statue was a replica of an original Christ statue placed off the coast of Italy in memoriam of the World War II fighters who lost their lives. As the American Navy helped provide the bronze, a second statue was sent to the United States as a thank you. Christ of the Abyss is a popular tourist destination for divers around Key Largo and is a very impressive, strange, and perhaps kinda spooky sight. Number 11. The Underwater River. An underwater river? Wait, what? How can that work? Surely it's all just water. It turns out underwater rivers are actually a thing. A group of scuba divers went on an exploration trip in Cenote Angelita, Mexico's Little Angel sinkhole in the Yucatan Peninsula. The sinkhole contains fresh water and salt water. The first 100 feet of the cave is filled with fresh water, but a weird layer of hydrogen sulfate separates the clear top water from the salt water below, creating a strange underwater river. Apparently, this phenomenon has a name: halocline. This is when fresh water and salt water meet, causing a change in the salinity of the gradient water. Underwater rivers, or haloclines, are almost exclusively found in or near ocean caves. The water isn't actually a river, even though it does look like one. The divers filmed their exploration of the cenotes, and it's really cool and kinda eerie at the same time. Number 10. A man and his truck. Not all discoveries are good, and this one was bittersweet. In October of 2019, a couple was scuba diving near Hat Rock State Park on the Columbia River in Oregon. The pair were looking for a lost boat propeller when instead they made a shocking discovery. Husband and wife Courtney and John Talbot found a red pickup truck submerged under 20 feet of water. The couple called the police, and the truck was found to belong to Maynard Cohen, a man who had gone missing, aged 80 in 1993. Police divers found Cohen's wallet inside the truck as well as his skeletal remains. The man had lived in Prosser and had disappeared in August 1993, and friends of the man recalled it to being a stormy night. Cohen must have lost control of his car in the storm and ended up in the river. The discovery solved a 26-year-old cold case, and his nearest and dearest were shocked to hear the discovery, but glad to finally have closure on the disappearance of the beloved man they nicknamed Friday. I hope he can now finally rest in peace. Number 9. Giant jellyfish. Listen, if you're going to deep dive in ocean water, you're opening yourself up to a whole world of creepy things. While we have a reasonably good understanding of what animals live like on Earth, we have very little knowledge on what's happening deep down underneath it. In July of 2019, a diver was having a great dip off the coast of Falmouth in England when she discovered a huge barrel jellyfish. Broadcaster and biologist Lizzie Daly was documenting her dive as part of the Wild Ocean Week and soon spotted a jellyfish as big as her. It seems that barrel jellyfish are the largest species of jellyfish in the British waters and are an incredibly rare spot. Usually, they grow to around 3.2 feet and weigh just 55 pounds, but the one that Daly spotted was over 5 feet in length. Footage of the mammoth fish was shared across news sites and social media, with plenty of people freaking out at the monsters that live in the ocean. And they really do look like monsters, right? Number 8. The Pulaski. Shipwrecks are a possible discovery when deep-sea diving. Usually they're found near coastal areas, having run aground in bad weather conditions, but other shipwrecks can be a lot more difficult to find. When people think of shipwrecks, they often think of the Titanic, as it was one of the most infamous and was headline-grabbing in its day. The Titanic's sink site and wreck was located over 70 years after it sank and was then finally explored by divers in 1987. You probably know a lot about the story, so let me tell you another one. In January 2018, divers located the missing Pulaski, a steamship that disappeared into the murky depths of the Atlantic in 1838. 59 people made it off the boat, but 128 people, 2/3 of the passengers on board, perished at sea. The steamship was filled with members of high society, including United States Congressman William B. Rochester and 6 members of the Lamar family, who at the time were the richest American family in the Southeast. The disaster was one of the most deadly and dramatic maritime accidents in the past 200 years. Divers came across the shipwreck about 40 miles off the coast of North Carolina and were able to informally identify the lost ship. The discovery was later confirmed by historians. Number 7. Warplanes. Okay, I guess it isn't that strange to find a sunken ship in the ocean. It's always a tragedy, but ships are ocean vessels. Discovering a sunken airplane, however, is much stranger. In January 2020, a sunken World War II plane was discovered 77 years after it was lost off the coast of Oahu in Hawaii. Private research vessel RV Petrol used sophisticated technology to capture images of the wreck of a Grumman TBF Avenger, which was one of the two that crashed into the water after 3 planes collided during the Squadron VT-3 training flight. 6 crew members across 2 aircraft were killed while the crew of the 3rd plane bailed out. The plane wreck found in January was found on the seabed at 330 feet deep, although it's uncertain which aircraft it belonged to. Just the year before, the same research vessel had discovered the wreck of a World War II aircraft carrier Wasp in the Coral Sea after it was sunk in the battlefield of Guadalcanal. On top of that, they also discovered the Imperial Japanese ship Hai, which was one of the first Japanese battleships to be sunk by U.S. forces during World War II and was found on the ocean bed near the Solomon Islands. Number 6. Black Pharaohs. Most of Egypt's rulers were light-skinned Egyptians. However, there were a number of lost pharaohs who had darker skin who came from the kingdom of Kush, which is now Sudan. Pierce Paul Kreisman was one of a team of underwater archaeology divers who explored the sunken tomb in Sudan, the location of the sacred ancient burial site of Nuri. A lot of people think of the pyramids being located in Egypt's capital, Cairo, but actually they are dotted all around what used to be the ancient Egyptian kingdom, with some of them lost to the elements. The tomb of Nuri is home to the black pharaoh Nastasen, who ruled the Kush kingdom between 335 BCE to 315 BCE. The pyramids are above ground, but the actual tomb itself is found below the pyramid structure, which has been breached by rising Nile water. Divers exploring the site have found ancient relics that they used to identify the tomb's inhabitants, one of which was of the 25th dynasty of pharaohs in Egypt, the group now universally known as the Black Pharaohs. Number 5. Mayan relics. The longest flood cave in the world was discovered in January 2018. A group of divers from the Gran Acuífero Maya project were studying the caves of the Yucatan Peninsula, and after a month of exploring the underwater channels, a link was found between them, making the total unobstructed length of the cave 216 miles. The Sac-Actun and Dos Ojos systems were found to be connected. The cenotes in this area were of religious significance to the ancient Mayan people, whose relationship with the cave stems back at least 4,000 years. It's thought that the ancient Mayans would visit the caves to communicate with their gods. While the extensive cave seems magical on film, it's also a giant graveyard to the ancient world. The cave churned up the remains of giant sloths, an extinct elephant-like creature, and burnt human bones. If divers are allowed more time and funding to explore the area, they suspect that they will not only be able to discover more relics, they will also find more connected caves. Number 4. Train Graveyard. How did 2 steam engines end up under 90 feet of water off the coast of New Jersey? That's crazy, right? I think finding sunken trains in the sea is even crazier than finding a sunken plane. There's just no way a train should ever be in the Atlantic. Paul Helper discovered the locomotives by chance in 1985 when he was mapping the ocean with a magnetometer. He was surprised to find 2 huge metal objects on the ocean floor. At the time, the diver didn't know what he was looking at as his visibility was so bad, but when he returned in future dives, he realized he was looking at 2 trains. The barnacle-covered trains had been explored further by Deep Explorers Inc. Underground archaeologists were able to determine that the trains date back to the 1850s, but how the unlikely locomotive graveyard came about is still a mystery. There's no historical record of 2 trains being lost in the ocean. The leading theory is that the trains were lost as a result of a shipping accident. They were likely being transported from Boston to the mid-Atlantic. The trains appear to be rare Planet Class 222T models. At the moment, the New Jersey Transportation Museum is considering plans to raise the trains and place them in their museum, although the process would be extremely costly. Number 3. The Ancient Skull. Imagine going on a dive and finding a skull. Sure, that would be terrifying. But then imagine finding out it was 13,000 years old. Now that's just wild. So for the third time on today's list, this story comes from Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula cave system. And I'm starting to think that the diving out there is the ultimate strange experience. In 2007, the pristine skeleton of a teenage girl was discovered in a deep water-filled cavern in Mexico. The girl's body was trapped by darkness and cold water for thousands of years in a chamber called the Black Hole. I just want to say, shout out to the divers brave enough to dive in something with a name that terrifying. I wouldn't do it. The body was between 12 and 13,000 years old. It was also determined that she would have been aged 15 or 16 when she died, and that in her era, the caves would have been dry and accessible, but she likely fell into a hole of water and couldn't get out. The cave divers who found her have recalled seeing her eyes and teeth looking back at them as they shone their underwater torches. Scientists were able to trace back the girl's ancestry and shed further light on human history in the area. Number 2. Oarfish. In case you weren't freaked out enough by the giant jellyfish, let me tell you what else you can find out there. Have you ever heard of an oarfish? Oarfish are giant monsters that are probably the source of most sea serpent legends. These frightening fish can stretch up to 26 feet in length, making them the longest bony fish alive. There are even unconfirmed reports of oarfish stretching to 56 feet. They also have a disconcerting gelatinous body texture. A few divers have happened across an oarfish while deep-sea diving, and although they're usually found below 600 feet deep, the chances of spotting one are quite rare. You bet that river monster host Jeffrey Wade has encountered one though, and yes, of course, he caught it on camera. The encounter is kinda spooky. There's barely any light that far down in the ocean, and the fish is sort of ghostly. Wade touches the fish, which I find disgusting. But what do you guys think? Would you touch an oarfish? Are you scared of what lives in the water? I know I am. Wade says he felt the creature came from another dimension. Number 1. Brinacle. Brinicles have been dubbed ice fingers of death, and for a very good reason. Seeing images of a brinacle conjure up is kind of an underwater lightning, but of course, that's impossible. Brinicles aren't lightning, but they can be just as deadly. The ocean phenomenon occurs when frozen seawater generates a downward flow of ice-cold salt water. When the ice brine shrinks and touches the seabed, it creates a slow spread of ice, killing everything it touches. Often, it's starfish and sea urchins meeting a terrible fate at the touch of the ice finger. The BBC actually caught a brinacle touching the ground in action as they were filming for Frozen Planet on the ocean bed in Antarctica. Camera operators Hugh Miller and Doug Anderson said they were shocked to watch the brinacle form rapidly in front of their eyes. It's possible that if they had been touched by the ice finger of death, they could have been in real danger. Okay, that is enough deep-sea diving for one day. That was the 15 strangest things found by deep-sea divers. Honestly, some of the weird things they discovered have kind of put me off of diving. It seems kind of scary down there. Do you guys watching at home dive? Have you ever found anything weird in the water? Let us know. Also, let me know what you think for our open discussion topic. Is that a real snake? Can a person get that close? Are you as freaked out as I am? Let me know.